This podcast is intended for mature audiences and contains adult language and subject matter. Listeners, please be advised.
Good evening and welcome back to another stunning edition of Drinking with Your Ex. I am Blake Thompson.
And I am Bonnie Neal. And yes, welcome back. Thank you guys so much. We just wanted to, the podcast has just taken off and we have just a big thank you to our listeners. We are so grateful. It has just been moving, the amount of feedback, the amount of listens, the amount of engagement. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, and also thank you all that have contributed to new ideas for future podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
We've gotten some really great future topics coming, and it's all because of you.
Yes. And keep it coming, right? You know, spread the word, share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, share it with your mom, because that's not weird at all. But
that's it. Make it weird. Thanks, Bonnie.
There's a Facebook group. It is private, but you're welcome to invite anybody on it. And then, you know, there is always our website, www.drinkingwithyourx.com, where you can get all the episodes. You can sign up and subscribe for our email news blast that'll have soon to be go out whenever we get that thing up and running.
And we're also going to be working on that blog as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also for premium listeners that are looking to maybe contribute to our future oncoming Patreon or OnlyFans account.
We are working towards a subscription as well as always taking donations. Thank you guys for keeping us in booze and keeping us on the air. This has been so much fun. We're having so much fun. Yeah. I appreciate it.
It's absolutely phenomenal, and we can't thank you enough.
All right, so let's tell people what this is after we've already done it. This is a podcast that Blake and I are exes, and we find ourselves over 40 and single with still wildly strong opinions about why both of us are still single.
Very strong opinions why we're both single.
And over 40, which leads us to today's topic, because this has been come up a lot. And, you know, we were interviewed recently by a friend of mine, Dennis Tardan Media, which is available on YouTube. And I found that
thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much for that interview.
He is one of the best humans ever. And I found that I'm the one who said that, you know, when you're single and you're over 40, you've obviously done something wrong, right? You know, obviously some of the traits you've been doing beforehand aren't working. But that led to kind of what I felt was a weird self-referential, self-loathing questions. And it leads us to today's topic. Does dating in your 40s mean that you're a failure?
Yeah. Or does it mean you're less of a person because you've not quite established yourself in an ongoing long-term relationship?
Right. And what, you know, dating over 40, is it a failure? Are you a failure? Have you failed? That's today's topic, which, you know, we'll find a way to make uplifting and entertaining. Yeah. There are, ready for it?
Yes, I'm ready for it. There are 3 rules. As you know, our fantastic listeners, our 3 rules are of the following. Rule number 1. Each podcast is inspired by a particular kind of booze or cocktail.
That is relevant to this week's topic. And we have to say inspired by because it's not sponsored by, because sponsorship means they pay us. If you want to pay us, please, info@drinkingwithyourx.com. But this week's episode, does being over 40 mean you're a failure? This week's episode is brought to you by
Macallan 12-year-old double cast scotch.
Because there's got to be some absolutely motherfucking advantages to being over 40, and one of them is good booze.
And good taste and refined taste in booze.
Yeah, I'm not willing to be that fancy. I can now afford really much better booze. Yeah.
I don't know about you. I'm a fancy bitch. I admit it.
That's true. You are a fancy bitch. Well, sure. Which brings us to our rule number 2, which is that we both get to introduce each other to the worldwide audience, thus engaging in edge play, having your ex describe you to the world. And And let's go with rule number 3.
And rule number 3 is the fun part that you all seem to really enjoy.
Everybody seems to like this part.
Is where each one of us gets to ask the other an uncomfortable question. And that question cannot be avoided.
Nope, nor going to be weaseled out of, or else a follow-up uncomfortable question will be coming. But you must answer,
You must answer. And for all you know, it's like because apparently y'all love our vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you love it when we got to strip emotionally naked on a podcast and then jump up and down on each other's vulnerability. Hey.
We're doing this for you, everyone.
You're welcome. Because, this originally was drinking with your ex and other bad ideas. What could go wrong?
Let's get this ball rolling. So we've already introduced our Inspired by Booze.
Our Inspired by Alcohol.
Which Bonnie and I are both sipping on, and it is fantastic.
It is so good. So good. Wish you were here. Not really. It's mine. And then the second one is we're going to introduce each other. All right. So.
Okay. So let me introduce Bonnie Neal, my ex of 24 years.
Wow. Had to put a number on it, man. Okay.
Yes. An accomplished writer and also literary aficionado. She's incredibly well read and likes to discuss this over dates and over drinks.
Aw. That's so nice.
It is nice because it's true.
Aw, you were so nice to me. All right, world at large. This is Blake Thompson, as I have mentioned, a Silver Fox trained therapist who, I stole this from a meme, but the moment I saw it reminded me perfectly of him, who is pro-science, pro-choice, and pro-wrestling. Our wonderful Blake Thompson really loves pro wrestling, and made me watch it a few times when we were dating, and I admire that he's got eclectic taste.
Eclectic taste, and for everyone that does know me, yes, I have a truckload of useless pro wrestling trivia and knowledge.
His love is pure.
Yes, and I have met numerous wrestlers in my life, and have friends that currently work for the WWE, and
I like how that's not a bad introduction.
And they currently work for the WWE and do all kinds of great things for them. So, Bonnie can make fun of me all you want. I totally admit that I'm a wrestling mark.
Wrestling nerd. Love it. Well, let's do it. Let's move on to this week's topic. I feel like we have just sort of this is the longest lead-in ever. We're all about the foreplay. You're welcome. Okay, right, let's just get at the meat of it. Does dating when you're over 40 mean that you're a failure?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's funny. Like when we were sitting there over dinner talking about this before, and going over all the reasons why, no, you're not. For a lot of our listeners that are over 40, maybe you are looking for the right opportunity that just hasn't presented itself yet.
Yeah, I feel like there's something to break down in that statement, right? Something to break down in that question. Does it mean that you are a failure? Like you're a failed human being? Does it mean that you have failed at life? Does it mean that you have failed at romantic and sexual relationships? There may be a yes, maybe to that last one, but does failing or not succeeding in a long-term romantic and sexual relationship, does answering yes to that question, does that mean the previous two questions are correct? Like, does that mean that you are a failed human being and you are living a failed life? That, I think, is kind of where I want us to talk about, because I get kind of, I'm the one who said it, right? I'm the one who said that, in the interview with Dennis, that once you're dating over your 40s, you're aware that you've done something wrong, right? That you're aware that you've had some bad habits that have led to some failed relationships.
Absolutely. But there's also other things that can contribute to why you are dating in your 40s. You might have not given yourself the opportunity for education, for career, for travel, for other life experiences that you were chasing, where it might not have been a relationship.
Well, and so that's where I feel like, thank you, that's where I fall into. I have had very specific goals since I was a very young girl. And those goals involved never getting married and never having children. And I never, ever wanted those things. And I remember when I turned 40 at my 40th birthday party, I literally did a little happy Snoopy dance in my bedroom, because I realized that I'd mission accomplished. Go, Bonnie. I hit 40 without a mortgage, without a man, and without, being in motherhood. Fuck yes, go me. I was so happy, that I did it, and I understand that I'm a mortgage banker and there's a little bit of hashtag irony in the idea of not having a mortgage, but I do have one now. I bought a house. But I measure my life, separately from the somewhat more culturally acceptable norms, yardsticks, like being married, like having children, owning a house. You know, I had wanted different things in my life and I pursued them and had them. But so I don't think I'm a failed person and I don't think that I have a failed life. What I do think is that I do think I have failed at cultivating, prioritizing, and really engaging with long-term romantic and sexual relationships.
But that's also where the birth of this podcast came from as well,
Yes.
where we're talking about, actively wanting to date and establish relationships in our 40s.
Yeah, it's a priority for me now in a way it hadn't been before.
And also with that dating, it doesn't necessarily mean a romantic relationship. It could be a new friendship based off. It's like when you find out, it's like, hey, this person is really awesome, but I don't want to date them.
This is the second time you've sort of gone down this route whenever we've been talking about, specifically like romantic, sexual relationship being the goal of dating. And you say, well, maybe like that's not the goal of it. Maybe it's not romantic or sexual. Maybe it is like making a new friend and, becoming, a pool player partner or something like that. And like, can you kind of talk a little bit about like, do you go on dates where the goal isn't some sort of romantic or sexual connection?
It depends on what type of date it is.
Okay, explain.
Well, it's like, as you all know, it's like I have very strong opinions about dating apps. I am not a fan.
Only sociopaths are.
And if you say you're a fan, I'm apologizing ahead of time because
I'm not, but go ahead.
Yeah. But there's a app that I like to use, Meetup, where many people get together and do different things.
Right.
And some of them have a dating nuance to them.
Elaborate.
There's a hiking group that does single hikes.
Ah, okay.
There's also single pool players. There's an improv group that does actually a singles group that gets together, does improv with a dating connotation to it.
Okay. With the idea that everybody who shows up is single, right?
Yes.
Is romantically and sexually available.
Right.
Okay. So that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because there's a possibility you could be an amazing human being, but it might not click in that romance way.
Right.
But you have a like-minded interest.
And then, connections lead to connections lead to connections, right?
Right.
Okay.
And again, then also you could become friends with that person and something could develop as well, where you could start off as friends, then all of a sudden one day it's like, wow, I'm really into you.
Okay. I didn't mean to hijack the whole conversation, but I just like,
Not at all.
my little spidey sense being like, ding, 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 ding. Blake has repeated something 3 times in 3 separate incidences. He's trying to tell me something. Okay, so I told back to the thank you for allowing me down that tangent.
No worries.
But going back to kind of where we were beforehand, I told you why I don't consider myself to be dating over 40 as either a failed human or failed life, but probably maybe a failure at successful relationships. What about you? Where do you consider yourself on that?
Well, as
spectrum?
I'm getting older, we've talked about it. I'm about to turn 49 here in a few days.
Oh yeah.
So
Woo, woo, woo. Happy birthday, Blake.
yeah, doing a lot of hard reevaluations of my life and what I've done in past relationships, past dating relationships. I don't think I'm a failure, but I think I missed something, and I'm working on trying to put my finger on that. Where I'm not in that long-term committed relationship like I expected I would be by the time I reach this age.
Okay. So, I don't know. Let me break that down a little bit. You don't think that you're a failure, but you do think that you've missed something along the way. And so that maybe you've
And again,
failed
this
your
is-
expectations of yourself? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Because one, it's like when you start getting into your late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, you start reevaluating your life. And since I'm turning 49, I've been doing that quite a bit.
I would say I was telling you that I remember you were at your 45th birthday and you were also equally kind of in your head. I feel like there's a busy little like accountant auditor that's wandering around the inner mind palace of the Blake and, frankly taking inventory and frankly kind of judging.
Yeah, and I always say it's a circus clown with a whoopee cushion making toilet humor jokes.
Well, okay. I'm not, you do you, boo, but there, am I not wrong? Like you
No,
are
you're-
making
you-
a kind
no,
of like
you are not wrong.
brutal inventory.
Yeah, and it's like brutal inventory is actually a really, really appropriate comment.
Do you think that's helpful, useful? Do you
No,
think
not even remotely.
seems a little self-torturing fetishization there.
Well, no, as we all know, it's like and I have said this before in previous podcasts, I am in therapy, and this is something that I do discuss with my therapist. I need to give myself permission and forgiveness of myself that, no, you had these expectations before, you now have the opportunity to develop new expectations of yourself yourself and also create a new future for yourself where it can be anything you want it to be. You're allowed to be particular when you get to a certain age in your dating.
Yes.
Where you're going, I'm looking for different outcomes to a new relationship versus old past relationships that weren't successful.
Okay. So that is what you say to sort of argue against the audit taking clown?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, at least I'm glad that there's a counter argument happening there.
No, there's an absolute counter argument happening. It's not just me going, woe is me, I'm beating myself up. No, that's not happening.
Yeah, because back when you were turning the number of 45 caliber ammunition, that clown was really wreaking some havoc on your sense of self. It was basically telling you it was pointing out all the things you didn't have, and essentially you were completely blind to all the things you did have.
Yes, and also, like, I also chose a couple other things over relationships, like motorcycles.
Yes, yes, you did. You know, but I mean, hey, I chose a house and a community over a relationship. You know, over prioritizing a relationship.
And it's also coming to the realization that no, and like at my age and being single, it's not a failure. It's not a scarlet letter. It's not a hash mark on my life that says, oh no, you fucked up. No, that's not it at all.
It's not, but I think we maybe had to be here to kind of realize and give ourselves that level of grace, because let's face it, I mean, I'm not telling anybody things they don't know, but the dating world can be kind of judgy McJudgy fucking mean, right? And there, the conventional wisdom to dating over 40, and I've heard this, and I know that you know this. Some of my friends that say this, that ask this about you. You know, he's over 40 and never been married. What's wrong with him, right?
Sure.
Or she's over 40 and has never been married. What's wrong with her? What kind of, is she a spinster? Is she, frigid? Like what kind of is she gay? And you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and the answer is honesty, folks, for my family that might be listening. It's like some of them accuse me. It's like, well, Blake's never had a successful relationship with a woman, so what's the fuck's wrong with him? Blake, are you gay? It's like, no, I'm not.
Queer is a $3 bill, but not gay. Thanks for asking, Mom and Dad.
Absolutely. I totally identify as queer, but explaining to them that there's nothing wrong with me because I did not run out in my early 20s, get married, start procreating, doing all the things that were expected in small town USA.
Well, not just small town USA. Like this is a social pressure in New York City. You see this in Austin. I don't think it's unique to the United States, right? I think the pressure for young people to pair bond and procreate is, one might say, our species depends upon it. I refer to that process as following a life on script. Right? And I know you've heard me say this before, but the way I think about life and the way I think about my life and kind of where it fits into it is that life on script. You know what it is, right? It's the, white upper middle class, socioeconomically mobile. You graduate from high school, you go to college, you meet a man in college, you guys get married, you get a job, you get an apartment, maybe the first house in the first 3 years, then you decide to procreate, you have 2.5 children, then you move to the suburbs, you put them in a good school, you raise them well, then you pay for their college, and then you guys retire, and then you go on tour buses of the Athens ruins with, built-in prepaid meals, and you're in bed by 6 p.m., right? That's the script. The thing about...
that script sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yes, but I always thought so, but damn if not a lot of people follow it, right? Like maybe I embellished and there's a lot of specific details that you don't have to do. But the reassuring thing about that script, right, is it does actually tell you that if you do these things, you've got a better than average chance of being happy, right? Like this is a script, this is a roadmap to happiness, to a successful life and being a successful human, right? And that is a life on script. And while there's been times in my youth I had a lot of really nasty, judgy things to say about people who chose a life on script. I respect the hell out of it because it's also not an easy route to do. No. I mean, I said, like, getting married and have kids is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. And also, when we're talking about life on script, Bonnie and I have both in our lives have went off script where other things came up that we desired and that we were looking for.
Well, I would say that I think for me, I don't think my life ever went on script. I think I knew from a very young age that I was conceived, born, and raised for, specific purposes that didn't involve that kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so a life on script was kind of never really for me, and I never really wanted it. But the downside to living your life off script is a bunch of perpetual terror and making shit up because you don't actually know what to do to make yourself happy. You kind of have to figure it out on your own. And sometimes you have to define your own happiness and, your own failures.
Yeah, and also happiness isn't a constant, it's an ideal.
I know that now. That was not.
But I mean, like when you're younger, what makes you happy? That could be a multitude of different things depending on how old you are.
Right.
When you're 19, it's like, yeah, woo, driving around, doing things, yeah, chasing girls at bars or trying to get into bars before you were old enough to drink, yada yada.
I mean, you and I were different 19-year-olds. I was dating you and a senior at NYU when I was 19. Remember that?
I do remember that, and you getting into bars.
Yes.
So Bonnie was underage drinking, everyone.
I was. I mean, I didn't turn 21 until after I'd graduated from college. So, yeah.
When I was 19, I'm running around Ohio going to concerts, like screaming down the street in a 78 souped up Nova, thinking I was the coolest thing on earth.
I'm sorry, I'm just snickering at that. A 78 souped up Nova, thinking I was the coolest thing on earth. I feel like that's just the segue into Bruce Springsteen's song. Go ahead. I'm just being snarky. Living a Springsteen dream. Right. But going off script, which I think, that's, I think, what is one can tell himself is true. If you find yourself dating over 40, guess what? Your life has gone off script, right? We are off script now because I don't even think it's the majority, but it definitely has the sense that the majority of people out there have already pair bonded and settled down, and they've got their person, and they're just cruising to retirement and a vineyard and tour bus.
But again, like we've seen on dating apps, there are a lot of people, men and women, and non-binary that are out there over 40 and they're dating. They've lived their life and they explain it in their dating apps. Sometimes in their bio, it's like, hey, I did this, and I'm finding myself to the point where it's like, yeah, now I want a meaningful relationship. I would like a dating life.
Yeah. Now it's a priority. Now I mean, that's kind of where I am. Yeah. Now I had a lot of mountains to conquer. I had a lot of hills to defeat. I had a lot of demons that needed to be killed. And now I'm more emotionally available than I have been in my entire life.
Right on. And as Bonnie has always liked to point out to me that at times in my life, I have been an insane, psychotic workaholic.
Yes.
And
takes
now,
one to know one. Do you want to be the pot or the kettle in this conversation?
Pot and kettle, yes. But what's really cool now, I have an incredibly balanced life between work and personal life.
Me too.
And it's wonderful. It's like at 4:30, I'm walking out the door on peace. And like all of a sudden, my evenings are free for hobbies, for dating, for what have you. And it's new to me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of exciting and scary all at the same time, where it's like, I can actually do this now. I can actually invest time in a relationship. I can invest time into a dating lifestyle, where before I always had an excuse why I couldn't.
Workaholic. Yep.
Yeah. Work, school, this, that, the other. Oh, Blake has how many jobs at one time? 5. What? Yeah.
I mean, you know me, I would just go through this cycle, right? Where overachieve, burnout, flaming burnout, then go and work in a coffee shop. I'm a writer. I'm going to be an artist. And then freak out because I don't have any money. And then I'd go get a job that was wildly overachieve. Burn out, flame out, go get a job in a spa and become a writer. Oh my God, I need money. Once again, go, yeah.
All of that was a learning experience for both of us.
Yeah.
It wasn't just we weren't just on autopilot.
I want to push back a little bit though about that, is that I did date. I did date in my 20s and 30s, and part of the reason why in retrospect I was emotionally unavailable, but also being a woman in my 20s, late 20s and early 30s, I'm telling a man that I'm dating that no, I really don't want to get married and I really don't want children, right? And how many of them didn't believe me? Right? How many of them thought that I was lying to them to trap their so completely irreplaceably valuable ass? Right?
Visibly eye rolled on that one, folks.
Yeah, but they didn't believe me and they thought I was a liar. And then once we'd been dating for a while, and then they're like, "Oh, you really mean it? You don't really want kids?" And I'm like, "What part of me fucking saying I didn't want kids? What was confusing to you?" And they're like, "Well, but I want kids." And I'm like, "Well, then you should date someone else."
Right.
And they got really mad because apparently I was not playing the role that they were expecting, which was to kind of trap a man into marriage and then push fatherhood upon him, right? Or push marriage upon him.
But you were very forthcoming with the fact that you were being honest. No, I don't want this. I don't want this. It's not for me.
Yes.
And those people were not respecting you.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I did kind of like wholesale go on a dating sabbatical, I would say, for about like 5 to 6 years from my like mid 30s to 40s. Granted, that is when I had my midlife crisis, so I was doing some pondering, doing some thinking, but yeah, the early 30s dating was just a whole bunch of guys being like, "Yeah, you're lying. All girls want married. All girls want babies." And I'm like, "I don't really want babies. I've been trying to get a gynecologist to agree to get my tubes tied since I was 16." That's a thing, right? And so that's frustrating when you're on a date with somebody who just doesn't believe you about basic things and is frankly unwilling to admit their own desire for those basic things, and then they blame you for that. Fun. Over 40, oddly, people believe me now. Yay! It's nice to not be called a liar on a first date.
Exactly. And nor should you be.
I mean, I don't think I'm the only one, but I also think that I think there is a shame mechanism on women, especially women dating in their 30s, to be honest about those questions, right? Do you want kids? Yes or no? But if they say yes, then they're never going to hear from this guy again. That is a real thing.
Yep.
And a girl admitting that she wants children doesn't mean she wants to have them right the fuck now, right?
Or even with you.
Let's tone down that arrogance factor a little bit.
It's like before you think that you're about to forcibly into planting your seed, guess what? Full stop, rewind.
Here's my question for you, and I need you to please explain and defend your entire gender. Please, go ahead. Like, why?
No pressure.
Why is it so difficult for men from age 25 onward to admit that they want to be a father, to admit that that is a genuine desire they want in their life? Why is that so, forgive my language, fucking taboo? Why? Because they do. I mean, I would say the majority of the men that I've known in my life, to be a father is a genuine desire for them. It is something that they want to do in their life.
They were never taught how to communicate in the first place.
Fair enough, right? The patriarchy hurts us all. But
but we can generalize about the male species all we want. When you break it down to the individual, it's like, what type of father figure do they have? Did they have one? Were these conversations had with their parents? Much like sex education, everyone, which is completely ignored here.
Yeah.
What happens afterwards? It's never discussed. It's always implied. It's like you'll have the parents that all of a sudden their kids in their 20s and just graduated high school or just graduated college, and all of a sudden they're grandbaby crazy.
Yeah.
And they're pushing their ideals on someone that might not be mature enough to realize, is this something I want? I don't know what I want. I don't even know who I am yet.
But it seems like men really, I mean, is it really just a state of delayed adolescence that, all right, I get I'm in college and my parents are pressuring me to get married and, live the life on script. I get that I don't even know who I am yet. I need some time. Right. But it does just seem that a lot of young men never even ask the question, right? The question of, is fatherhood something that I want? Not right now, but in the future. My guess is that they just constantly default to the answer being no.
And it could come from fear, uncertainty. Could come from a multitude of different things.
I mean, I feel like you're kind of whistling around that question or that answer. But
no, because how many people do we know that have accidents happen?
True. Well, I mean, a lot more about to happen. Yay.
A lot more about to happen. Fuck our Supreme Court. Anyhow, an accident happens. The next thing you know, it's like their fatherhood was thrust upon them. And I'm not saying it's...
Well, motherhood's usually thrust upon people too, right?
Absolutely. But then all of a sudden they get okay, am I going to be a dad? Do I want to be a dad? Can I be a dad? And they're still not sure.
Well, I mean, I think my aunt, whom I love, she's one of my favorite family members that we're not really related, but I love her. She said, if you waited until you're ready, nobody would ever have kids, right? The having of kids is by definition, you never know what you're getting into. You sometimes just have to hop on for the ride. But fatherhood used to be a somewhat expected rite of passage in an American male's life, and now it seems to be something they kind of only think about. Forgive me, Blake, they kind of put you on the spot. They kind of only think about when they're hitting their 45 caliber to 49 caliber and being like, oh shit, I kind of would like a child, right? And forgive me for saying that, but fuck you for having a goddamn half of a century before you have to think of that.
Don't hold back. Tell me how you really feel.
Well, sorry, I'm just kind of saying, defending out for all my ladies. I mean, I didn't want kids, and I've always known that, but I know that.
But these are questions, and one, I'm not defending my gender at all on this. These are questions they should be asking.
Yeah.
They should be asking themselves. It's like look themselves in the mirror when they're in a new relationship or an existing interesting one where do I want kids? Am I capable of being a father to somebody?
I mean, again, I feel like capability is requiring a little bit too much in the moment. Like sometimes you rise to the occasion. Nobody knows unless you've been a parent. I don't think you
Right.
know if you're capable
But
of it.
still, it's like these are questions that should be asked.
Yes.
And if someone says, no, I don't want children, like you saying you don't want children, this isn't an are you sure moment. This is, I should be taking your word for it.
Yes. And then men stop dating women that say they do want kids, right? But I agree with you. Like what I tell my friends, like there is no wrong answer to the question of whether you want kids or not. There's just your answer.
Right.
And you just have to know what your answer is. And to go back to our we keep moving somewhat away, but I think these are all kind of important tangents from, does dating in your 40s mean that you're a failure? I think the answer is no, unless you still don't have a fucking answer to questions like that.
Yeah. And again, sit down with someone objective. Have that conversation. Don't sit there and let it swirl around in your head. If you're not sure, go to a parent planning meeting.
Yeah. Go talk to your friends who are parents.
Yeah.
Go talk to
Ask them.
Yeah. Go talk to, people that you admire who have kids. Go talk to people who do admire that don't have kids. There is enough of us out there that you can kind of compare and contrast. Children are always an opportunity cost. But
Exactly.
Stephen Colbert said he was interviewing this person who wrote like a book on happiness, and he was saying like, according to all statistics, children are the number one thing that causes happiness to decline. But the joy and love he has for his children and for being their father more than makes up for it, right? Like the payoff in day-to-day transitory happiness is more than made up for in a kind of the deep-seated joy, right? Like there's you kind of have to know what your answers are in 40s.
You do.
Not all the answers, but these are some pretty crucial ones you need to know.
When it comes to children, and then also when you're just looking at a relationship in your 40s, doing that reevaluation of your past relationships. What mistakes have I made?
Right. Well, and that going back to my, my pithy statement in the interview that, if you're dating over 40, you're doing something wrong, right? But yeah, you do, right? Obviously, there's some relationship patterns that aren't kind of working now or never. When you going to change them?
Yeah, and you sit there and it's like, okay, I made these mistakes. Acknowledge those mistakes and learn from them. Don't sit there and jump into another relationship and go, I'm going to do the exact same thing I've done the last 3 times. That's worked out so well for you.
Yes. Well, and the idea for this particular topic came from one of our mutual friends, and she just broke up with a pretty toxic ex, and he and I are the same age. She's younger. She's I think in her mid 30s, and he is 43 years old. Where our birthdays are very similar, and he definitely has a goddamn Peter Pan complex, right? Like he is recreating the exact same relationship patterns that he has done for the past 24 years, 25 years. Like that, he does not want increased intimacy. He does not want any of the kind of like
these are stunningly unhealthy habits.
And it's just like, well, if you're not gonna change now, then when are you, right? Like when you're 64?
Or are you? Period.
Yeah, true. It's true.
Because there are people out there that will sit there and look in the mirror and go, "I'm fine. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with everybody else."
Yes, I feel like that you just encapsulated the entire appeal of Donald Trump. Yes. Bulletproof confidence, that one. And
but again, it's if you're unwilling to learn and change, if you're unwilling to forgive yourself for past mistakes, if you're unwilling to look at it and go, okay, I've made a lot of dating mistakes. I've made a lot of relationship mistakes. If I want to have a relationship into my golden years, I have to really reevaluate and fix things that I'm doing.
Right. I'd be open to change, right?
Yeah.
Both fixing and open to change, right? Which goes back to therapy, but also goes back to like, try dating different people, different kinds of people.
Right. If you're sitting there going like Bonnie and I talked about types, if you have a specific type that you've been chasing for years and years and years for insert said reason here, and you realize, no, this isn't working.
Or chasing or just catching rather easily, right? One or the other. Either it's too much striving or too little. Interesting. Well, I just wish there was that little button on profiles where you could be like, working on myself, trying for something different, to I'm perfect the way I am. And, I feel like that just yes or no, let me know let me know where you sit on that personal journey of awareness, dating over 40, because that would be useful to know, because it's not automatically
Right.
obvious.
No, it's not. I'm always a proponent of therapy and going to therapy. But like, I mean, if you're carrying around emotional baggage from past relationships and whatnot that haven't worked, that you haven't addressed, go talk to someone objective. Or hell, talk to your friends, talk to your family. It's like, hey, it's like, you know, you're around for this. What did you see? You know, and y'all might not like those answers, everyone.
Oh yeah, be prepared. Actually, one of the dating books that I do recommend, which is How Not to Die Alone, utterly frightening title, but it is interestingly useful. One of the things she says is like, you need to, the first step is to know thyself, and that if you don't really know what your faults are, ask a sibling. They can whip out a top 10 list really off the top of their head. Nobody like a sibling knows you and is completely unconcerned with hurting your feelings.
Or if you're friends with your ex, guess what?
Oh, that's true. You know, hey, it's just one of the many joys I offer.
Bonnie has something like, it's like, whoa, you really fucked up there. And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, God. And then like I sit back, evaluate. Yeah, I did. You're right. You saw it. You saw it. Both barrels. Thanks. I'll take it. I'm going to drink some more of this Macallan to wash that taste out of the mouth.
I mean, at least that's good booze to wash down the taste of failure. No, I'm just teasing. I think we're well past the time for an uncomfortable question.
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to do, so you go first.
No.
All right. I want to hear what your little accounting auditing clown has said to you about your life, 45 and 49. I want to know what it says you've not accomplished, and then I kind of want to know what you think you have accomplished with 49, less than 48 hours away. Give me 5. No, give me 3. Top 3.
Top 3.
Accounting clown. Top 3.
Counting clown.
Voice of rationality.
Counting clown. You're not as financially stable as you want to be.
Okay. And that means you're bad.
Means you're bad. Well, I had someone ask me what my credit score was on our first date. But you want to talk about Al?
Credit score's not that bad, but I get it. Yeah.
I'm not as financially stable as I want to be. I figure I'd be further along in my career.
Meaning like manager, director,
that
private
type of
practice.
Thing. Private practice, like all the things. Moving to Texas kind of stunted my career. I completely admit that.
Well, Texas is deeply medieval about mental health.
Yes, and I have been beating myself up since 45. Very candidly honest about that one. And I'm going to be 49 and I'm still single.
That's a big disappointment in yourself, isn't it?
Yep, 100%.
Why?
Because of my own shit, I've had relationships that I've absolutely sabotaged. Because of my own trauma, my own self-absorption, my own, as Bonnie likes to point out, my own emotional unavailability. And these are things that I've had to admit to myself over the last couple of years.
But that clown thinks that you'd still be in those relationships if it wasn't for you. Is that what that clown says is true?
Yep.
You know,
I'm not saying the clown is right. I'm
auditing
saying
clowns usually are a suspect source. But that's the truth, the lie. Right, that your auditing clown is telling you about that.
It's like, have I been a bad boyfriend in the past? Absolutely.
But have you been a good boyfriend in the past?
Yes, I have.
All right, so it kind of isn't giving a full tally.
It's always easy to look at the negative, and it's always easy to magnify those negative aspects and then forget about the good.
Yes.
Because stunningly, it's being your own worst critic.
All right, so what are the top 3 things? What's the opposite of an auditing clown? I mean, an angel with beer? I mean, I don't know.
Angel with beer. Okay. Well, a big one for me is like, I'm making it to 49.
Fuck yes!
Yeah.
Didn't think we got here. Woo, woo, woo.
That's a big one for me, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, considering he was an undercover narcotics officer when he was 20 years old, think about like the lifespan for those kinds of cops. Come on.
Yeah. So I made it to 49. So winning.
Mm-hmm. Living is the best revenge.
Yeah, living is the best revenge. Also, I completed my education later in life.
You did, but you completed it pretty impressively.
Yeah, I banged out my bachelor's degree, master's degree in a little under 6 years.
Fuck yes. While working a full-time job. Several full-time jobs.
Several full-time jobs, actually.
In a profession that you're good at and passionate about.
Yeah, and I'll toot my own horn on this one. It's like right now, the work I'm doing, I am doing the best work of my life.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but like right now, I am doing active counseling in an inpatient, outpatient program for stroke and traumatic brain injury patients.
Kind of amazing. I think you really enjoy this.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoy it. As Bonnie likes to point out, I have a stupid human trick where I can get anybody to talk to me.
Yes.
And that stupid human trick does not work in this dynamic, period.
Because they can't talk.
Some can't talk. Some that can only know a handful of words.
Well, so you're challenged to communicate, perhaps not with your silver tongue, silver fox combo, but more basic and human.
Yeah.
But you're doing it.
I'm doing it. And like I said, I am right now in my career, I'm doing the best work I've ever done.
That's awesome. That's not a bad place to be at 49.
It's not. It's not. I just need to beat that auditing clown to death.
Yeah, just remember that when you try to bring out the clowns. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
I love you.
Love you back.
49, 7 squared. What's not to like? Sorry,
Yeah.
it's just so exciting.
So my uncomfort question is similar for you. We talked about feeling like you're like failures and whatnot, or feeling less than because which you don't feel that way. It's like when did you come to that conclusion now?
Oh, well, I mean, so yeah, I had kind of a early midlife crisis, so to speak, which I remember I don't think you told our listeners, but there is something, these feelings that we're having, these questions that we're having over 40, these are also right directly in line with our developmental path, right?
Yeah.
Like these are what other people our age are doing. What'd you call it? The
Erickson's stages of development.
Erickson's stages of development, right? And one of those stages is, what is it called? Generativity versus
Stagnation,
right? Is, kind of a moment where you take stock and you either stay still or you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did that in my mid-30s. That's when I did the whole cliche, right? I went to Burning Man and had an epiphany and quit my job, quit my friends, quit my family, quit my life, and made a wholesale change. Went from working for a global consultancy firm to being a concierge at a downtown Austin spa, and it was awesome. And took a lot of stock of my life, realized that I was an addict. I was addicted to overwork. I gained a lot of sense of power and pride through my professional self at the literal atrophying of other parts of me. But I also was working on a life off script, and I had friends that were married or getting married or prioritizing marriage, or all they could fucking think about was marriage, or, having kids and, buying houses and just sort of moving through these life stages that I was not and did not want to do. And I was succeeding at a job that rewarded the worst parts of my personality, right? I would get bonuses for lying well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was raised to be a gifted liar. I don't need to be better at it. I don't need to be financially incentivized by my company to be better at it. And I didn't want to be continuing to be successful in what I considered being my worst self.
Okay.
And so I had to figure out who I was, right? Or actually, more importantly, I had to figure out who I could be and wanted to be. Because I kind of knew who I was, and that was not a very good person, right? But I wanted to be a good person, and I wanted to be happier. And that's when I'm telling you, like, I found the burner community, and I'm so grateful for them. They did settle something inside of me because they helped me figure out what my purpose is in this life and on this planet, and how to judge this relative success of my life, and that is to be a better human.
Right on.
And I am hands down a much better human than I've ever been, and I am dedicated to continuing to be a better human. As I was saying, like, I'm a much better human than either one of my freaking parents, and I'm a hell of a better human than I was raised to be.
Rock and roll.
And with that sense of, frankly, I mean, success, right? I know that I am a better human, and I also know that is a choice I make every day, every moment, every minute to be a better human. Then I kind of don't have to, can let myself off the hook, but also it takes a lot of the urgency away from the idea of leaving a legacy when you don't have children. Well, what do? Do you need to write the great American novel? Do you need to paint the, masterpiece painting? How do you impact your world when you're not, contributing your DNA to it? Well, and I do recognize that I think if I don't really give a genuine, open-hearted shot at a healthy romantic and sexual relationship with a man, then I do kind of think at the end of the day, my life will have been not a failure, but kind of a tragedy.
Okay.
That does on some level mean that my trauma kind of did ruin me. And I refuse to accept that is truth, because it hasn't ruined me yet, and I cannot let it. And that does mean being vulnerable, and that does mean being a shit ton of therapy. It does mean kind of, dating outside of the box, and maybe dating excruciatingly slowly, and maybe being honest about some of my sharper edges, and honestly, perhaps less secretive about my softer ones.
Right on.
But it was a lot of words in a monologue. Did it answer your question?
Yep, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I believe we have answered the question. Ladies and gentlemen, our amazing freaking audience of Drinking with Your Ex, I would like to hear your answers, right? What is a failed life? What is a failed human?
But also, what is a successful life? What is a successful human?
And, how can you even know the answer to that until the end and the tally is taken? I definitely think it's worth asking, and I definitely think it's worth, kind of beating up those auditing clowns in one's head.
Yeah, fuck those guys. All right, everyone. I think we're coming around to the end tonight.
Oh, yeah, we got real chatty. We were a little rusty. We got really chatty. But we love you. And again, questions, answers, share it with everybody. Share. DrinkingWithYourEx.com. I'm Bonnie Neal.
I am Blake Thompson. It's time for a refill.
Good night.